Welcome back to Good Morning LaLa. And I am so honored because I love documentaries and my favorite thing in the world. Brent Huff, you are a documentarian and you have two incredible documentaries that I really want to talk about. Tell us about your next documentary.
Well, it's called Welcome to the Beyond, and it's a documentary about a guy named Hoyt Richards. Hoyt Richards grew up privileged on the East Coast. His family spent their summers in Nantucket. He's smart. He went to Princeton, played football at Princeton, goes to New York City, becomes the first male supermodel. Life could not be better, all right? So then he gets stopped on the beach one day in Nantucket, and this guy says, you're different, you know that? You're smart, you're beautiful, you're different from everybody else. And he convinced him that he was from the Star Arcturus, and they formed this cult in New York City. And a lot of the Ford models, who also, a lot of them went to Ivy League schools as well, were in this cult. And they were told to break away from your family. And so he disowned his family for 20 years. And he gave the cult $4.5 million, and it was all to achieve enlightenment.
Wow.
And then after 20 years, he tries to, he's making his way back to his family and is going through recovery right now.
This story is so fascinating. It's almost unbelievable,
right,
to tell you the truth. What is it as a filmmaker that you were intrigued to actually capture the story?
Well, we were at the same agency in New York, and so when you go on photo shoots and stuff, you'd hear these rumors that some of the Ford models were in a cult, and you go, are you serious? Get out of here. No. And then there was, in 1990, there was a expose by Vanity Fair magazine, and it's like, holy crap, this really happened. There's a name saying, I know this person, this person, this person. And then fast forward to like 3 years ago, Ford models had, because I knew it as a filmmaker, had me film a Ford's model reunion here in Beverly Hills. And we're filming, I get to interview some of the icons like Cheryl Tiegs and Esme and some of the big people. And then I looked at my DP, director of photography, and go, that's Hoyt Richards. He was in a cult, let's go talk to him. We went over there and Hoyt was very open, and he talks about this and about what he went through, and so.
Who was the cult leader?
A guy named Frederick von Mears, who was also a model back in New York.
Wow, interesting. Yeah. So it was in the 80s, so I'm sure it had to be a spin-off of the Warner Earhart-esque, probably whole scene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fascinating. And I think it's interesting because, a cult, it's interesting because a cult really is, you're revering somebody that's still alive and following. But I think the definition for me around cult, because sometimes that could be a good thing, really for me it's about where it really harms people's lives. It destroys people's families, and it starts to really crumble their finances, their health, and everything over long term. So important to know that can be a type of drug as well, right?
Well, it started in a good place. Hoyt told me they were doing good for people, and it was a spiritual thing, and then it just over a period of time got darker and darker and darker. It's sort of like, when you put a frog in water and it slowly it boils, and they don't know to get out. That's sort of what happened. It's just like you're slowly. He didn't believe he was in a cult. His family thought he was. They tried to do an intervention that went horribly wrong. But like I said, it started in a good place.
Wow. I'm curious, what is it that you want your legacy to be, Brent?
That's a good question. I don't know. I want to make great stories, and stories that actually affect people. I heard you talk earlier. I do scripted movies too, and some are good, some not so good. But I don't get from that what I get from documentaries that you might have changed my life. You brought an awareness to something that wasn't there, and it was entertaining but also informative. So that's what I'm trying to,
I love it. And documentaries, they have to have a twist, though. I think that a good documentary it shows kind of many sides, but also doesn't take one perspective.
Right.
So how were you able to do that with even like that? I mean, hard to do that on drugs and behind the curtain, orange curtain, and then hard to do that with the cult because it's there's so many kind of preconceived notions.
Well, I did a documentary on the modeling industry called Chasing Beauty. And some of the models said I was too hard on the industry, that I go, it's not that bad. And then others said, no, you need to be more hard hitting. Well, there's parts of the modeling industry that are good, and there's parts that are dark. And so I just tried to be, fair and balanced.
That's good.
That's what I go into.
Well, and you did it very successfully. #1 fashion movie on IMDb, right?
Oh, yes.
Chasing Beauty. For those that
slipped in.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. For those watching who haven't seen it, what do you think is the biggest takeaway about the industry? What was the light you really shed on it?
Well, you can't really achieve what these you see in the fashion magazines. You know, back when I was doing it, they didn't Photoshop everything. Everything is Photoshopped now. Everything. And so, and for girls to be, you know, 5'11" and a size 0, a size 2 is almost impossible. So there's eating disorders. And when I was in Paris and Milan, they encouraged the girls to smoke cigarettes, and they didn't frown about doing cocaine because it kept them thin. And then there's a shelf life, and it's really brutal, the shelf life. And it's harder on women than it is men because, you know, I would introduce my agents to this model. I said, you know, she's great. And they go, how old is she? I go, she's 23. And they go, that's way too old. Wow. They need to start at 14 or 15 years old to go to New York and Paris, Milan. So there goes your education, you know. So you can't wait till you're out of college and then start your modeling career. It's too late. And then slowly the phone quits ringing, you know, because there's a new, younger, you know, model coming in. So it's the ugly part of beauty.
Right.
Yeah.
I think ageism will be the next big movement that we're going to see online for sure.
Oh, absolutely. In this town, it's like really brutal, you know. And you wouldn't, it's not just with the actors and the models, but it's with writers and producers that they think you're too old, that you're not relevant, you don't know what's happening anymore if you're a certain age.
Yeah, and 50% of Americans are over the age of 50. So, I mean, it's people purchasing are much older. So it's interesting, the power. Remember where we have the power as a people.
Right.
We've got to take it back.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for all
Thank you
your
for
work.
having me. I
am
really
so,
appreciate it.
you're like, I'm your #1 fan because documentaries have touched my lives beyond anything else online. It's really important. And in today's world, we're so fast and have such short attention spans. Documentary is still a place that intrigues me. So keep up the amazing work.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Tell everybody where they can find and follow you.
My website is brenthuff.com. If you want to know more about Behind the Orange Curtain, there's a website, behindtheorangecurtain.net.
Thank you, Brent. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more on Good Morning La La Land.